Hello and welcome to episode 130 of the She Must Knit podcast. My name is Erin and thank you so much for spending some of your time with me today. So I'm going to preface this with saying that this episode might be a little bit of a disaster. I am trying something new. You might be able to tell by the lighting that it's different than the last couple of episodes. It is during the day right now. It is a Thursday, and in the last month or so, Dennis has started going back into the office on Thursday, so just one day a week. So Avery's at school, Dennis is at work, but Kira is home. And Kira doesn't nap anymore. She has stopped napping for the last maybe 2 months or so, so she's up. And I have no idea how this is going to go. I want to try it just to see, but she is upstairs in her room right now, just kind of playing. I've got the monitor on because she goes all over the place. Right now she's just kind of playing on her bed. But I have a feeling that if she comes downstairs and she sees me talking to myself to the camera, she's going to be very, very interested in this whole setup here, and I might have to pause. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this in multiple segments. It might be a little bit choppy. I don't know if this is going to be a complete disaster and I am just going to have to restart and wait for another day. But I figured I might as well at least try it, right? Who knows? You don't know until you try. So, yes, it has been about 3 weeks as usual since my last episode. So I have lots and lots of stuff to share with you. I've got lots of things that I finished. I've cast on some new projects. It's very exciting. I think at the end of this episode we are going to do a full-on bingo update where we go into my on my Google Docs and go in there and go in my card and fill in some spaces because I've got a lot of things that I can change on there. So let's get started. I think I'm going to do what I've been doing the last couple of episodes where I start off with telling you what my goals were at the end of the last episode, what my goals kind of were going into, for the next episode, what I was hoping or what I was thinking I might finish, what I was thinking I might start, just kind of a plan, and then we'll see what I did. And then I will give you some ideas and thoughts about what I'm hoping to complete over the next couple of weeks. So I've got my little note here. I'm just going to be referencing it because I can't remember anything these days, so I have to write everything down. But my goals for this episode were, I was like 99.999% confident that I was going to finish Rebecca's socks. I thought I might be able to also finish my mom's socks. I was pretty confident that I'd be able to finish my trestle tee because I really only had a couple of inches left on the back, and then I just had to press it and do all the finishing. I thought it was possible that I'd get the cowl done, but I wasn't sure. I was pretty sure that if I did in fact finish Rebecca's socks, I would have a new sock cast on. If I finished my mom's socks, I would probably already also have another sock cast on, so possibly 2 sock cast ons. And I think those were all my goals. So I am going to take just 1 second because it is silent, and if any of you have had toddlers or currently have a toddler, you know that silence can only mean one thing, and with Kira, it usually means either A, she's getting into something that she shouldn't be getting into, or B, she's sitting quietly somewhere and reading. So I'm just going to take a quick second and go see what she's doing, and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. As I thought, she was getting into trouble. She had gotten into Avery's room and she was playing in there. And she's not supposed to play in Avery's room because there is lots of big girl stuff in there and a bunk bed that, she's not supposed to be in there. So she's downstairs now. I've got her set up with a little thing that she can do. However, she might be now hearing me talk to myself and wonder what I'm doing, and it's quite possible that she will pop over. We'll just have to see how it goes as it goes. Okay, so let's get into my projects now that we know what my goals were for this episode. And I am going to start with the project that I was almost pretty sure that I was going to complete, and that is Rebecca's socks. So I have these complete and finished and all done. I didn't block them, but sometimes I block socks, sometimes I don't. But yeah, I think these turned out really, really, really fun, and I've actually been chatting with Rebecca. We're trying to plan a little meetup in the next couple of weeks, so I will be able to give these to her. So for these socks, what did I use? I used, if you've been watching, you know I'm all about the microstripes this year. So I used this wool mice that I found in my stash as the solid, and then for the the gradient striping. This is all I have left of it. It was this little 250-gram gradient set that I got from, I think, the Orange Octopus from the Fiber Spirit show when I vended there last year. So I think these turned out super, super fun. We've got the nice bright rainbow colors. I like how the contrast of that cobalt blue kind of makes them pop. I didn't quite get the full gradient. You can see there's a bit of a darker turquoise and then the purple. I didn't get to that, but I think that's okay. I like how they turned out regardless. So these are done. And now I'm going to show you my next one. I just have to get them on the blockers. So just one second. I apologize for not going into a whole lot of detail with those socks. Sometimes I wonder how repetitive it gets because I know a lot of you guys are repeat viewers. But just in case there's anyone new. So for Rebecca's socks, I knit them the same way that I knit my socks. Pretty much all my socks are the same. I very, very rarely venture into like a pattern. I like just doing plain vanilla socks, striping yarns. I'm really into the micro stripes this year. But typically I either start with 81 stitches if I'm doing it for someone who wants a larger sock size like myself or my friend Rebecca, or I do a 72 stitch start cast on if I'm doing it for someone else. So those were 81 stitches to start with, 2x1 rib, and then I just go straight stockinette down the leg, foot. I do a strong heel. I decrease right around after I do the heel turn, I decrease and finish off the foot, and then the length of the foot is a different amount of rows depending on who I knit them for. So the next pair of socks, I was actually able to finish my mom's socks. So these were knit, like I said, Rebecca's socks were knit with 81 stitch cast on. These I started with 72 because my mom has a smaller leg size, smaller foot size. I still did my 2x1 rib. And you might notice that these look a little different than, I think in the last episode I had the first sock done and I was working on the second sock. These look a little different. So for this pair, I also used the Cobalt Vomise because this is one, I think I mentioned maybe 2 episodes ago, that with microstripes, I like how a darker solid kind of looks with whatever yarn you're pairing with it. I just think the contrast really makes the little stripes pop out. And I have very few solid yarns in my stash. This is one of the few solids that I was able to find in my stash, and it's a 150 gram skein. So I've used this now for 2, so Rebecca's socks and then also the contrast on these socks, and I still think I should weigh this, but I think I could get another pair of microstripe socks out of that. But originally I had planned to make these microstripe socks, and then I didn't like how it looked with the speckling. I just felt that it kind of took away from the speckles, and also part of the joy of microstripe socks, at least for me, is seeing how it changes as you go on. So I like doing it with striping yarns. I find that fun. I've done it with sock blanks. I find that fun. I want to try it with variegated yarns because I think that will help. I usually don't like knitting socks with just variegated yarns. I don't like how unpredictable they can be, like all the flashing and the pooling and how they can just do weird things that you don't know. I'm not a fan of that, and I think adding in the microstripe element might kind of tone that down. So that is something I want to try. But I had started these with microstripes and I didn't like how it looked. So I ripped back and I started back with just the speckles because I really thought that the speckles were quite pretty on their own. However, this speckled yarn was, it was a 65 gram skein from Richard DeVries. And anytime I've done a pair of socks for my mom, I have never used more than 65 grams. So I figured adding in the contrast cuff, I should have no problem finishing this pair of socks with the 65 gram main skein. Well, I had finished the full first sock with just the blue as the cuff and then the rest of the sock in the speckle. And I had started the second one and I had got down to the foot, and I think I was about here on the second sock, and I was like, I don't think I'm going to have enough to finish the whole sock. And I didn't. So what I ended up having to do was rip back the first sock to about, I think I decided to do, with my mom's socks, after I turn the heel, I do 50 rows until I start the toe. And so I think I decided I was going to do 30 rows in the speckle, and then the last 20 rows I was going to alternate between the speckle and the contrast. So I still managed to squeeze a little bit of microstriping into these socks, and you can kind of see what that looks like with the speckled. Yeah, I liked how the speckled looked on its own versus broken up by the little stripes. So yeah, I did end up having to rip back that first sock and get some more yarn from that, and then the last 20 rows I did the micro stripes and then the contrast toe, whereas the first sock I didn't have a contrast toe even. And then I had enough yarn to complete the second sock. So yeah, that's what happened with those, but they're done, and that is another square on my bingo card. I think everything that I'm going to be showing you today will apply to the card. I don't think I have, actually no, I have one thing that I worked on that I did not put on my bingo card. It's just something that I like to work on a little bit every year. I think I will show you that kind of between the old projects and the new projects. So I did finish my mom's socks. Is there anything I need to say about these? I think the only other thing that I always forget to mention, because again, it gets repetitive, is that I tend to knit my socks on 2mm needles. I like a nice tight fabric, and that is just what works for me, which is why I think if you knit socks and you typically knit them with the standard like 64 stitch cast on, my numbers might seem much higher, and it's because I knit on a smaller needle and I like a denser fabric. So that is my mom's socks. So now what shall we show you? I think I will show you the other projects that you have seen and that I have made good progress on, and then we'll get into the new stuff. So the other thing that I was pretty sure I was going to finish was my trestle tee. As I mentioned earlier, I only had a couple inches on the back to do, and then just the pressing and everything. I am going to put a picture on the side here I took a picture of it hanging on the back of a door, because it's gonna be hard to get the whole feel for the sweater just holding it up. So I will put that up. I don't know if I'll put it up right now or in a minute, but anyway, a picture will pop up of this hanging so you can see the full garment. So this is the high trestle tee, and I started this I had to look at my project page because I couldn't remember, March of 2021. So it's almost just over 2 years that it took me to finish this, but there was a long hiatus in the middle there. It did not need to take 2 years. I think that's like any project that you end up putting aside and like not forgetting about, but you just are not actively working on, and then you get back to it. Once you get back to it, it really takes no time at all, and you're like, why did I put all this time between starting it and finishing it? I literally could have had this done back in 2021 in no time if I had just stuck with it, but whatever, stuff happens, right? Life happens. So the high trestle tee, I looked at my notes, and I did a combo of 2 sizes. I had cast on with a smaller size. I think I cast on with like the 44-inch size for the neckline stitches, and then I gradually increased up to the 47-inch size because I am quite narrow here, but I am bustier down here, and I find that if I knit the size for my bust size, then things tend to be very loose up here. So that is what I did. And I do think that it fits fairly well. I don't have a picture of me wearing it. I just haven't gotten around to taking that. But I think it turned out well. I don't know if I'm going to end up wearing it. I have this thing with garments. I enjoy knitting them, but it's very, very rare that they make their way into my wardrobe as like a regular rotated piece. You might notice that I'm wearing my Cumulus blouse today. This is one of probably the only garment that I've ever made that I've worn more than twice. Like I think I've worn this easily more than 5 times now, but usually if I make myself a garment, I try it on, right after you finish it, you take your finished object photos. I might wear it one other time, and then it just makes its way into my closet just to sit and never be seen again. So I have actually worn this, 5+ times. I don't know yet. I don't know yet the fate of this sweater because I love the color. As Vanessa, as you mentioned, I'm very on trend with this. The Pantone color of the year is a magenta type color. So yeah, this is my kind of color. I love this kind of color. It's just, I've yet to see if it's going to kind of work its way into something that I'm comfortable wearing on a regular basis. Not even a regular basis, just to wear. Now, I will say, I have a pair of leggings that I tend to wear to my shows that have like knitted print on them that has like lots of bright colors, and it has this pink in it. And I'm like, this might be a nice little sweater to wear for when I vend at my shows, because you know how everybody wears their knits and their sweaters and their shawls and their accessories to the knitting shows to kind of not show them off, but kind of show them off. I was like, this might be something I could wear to shows. This could be my show sweater. It's short sleeve. A lot of the shows I do are in the warmer weather, so this potentially has its place there. We'll just have to see. But yeah, so it's got this nice little lattice design on the front, which I thought was very cute. I've mentioned several times as I've been working on it that I did a split seam. I just find that I have a commercial top that has the same design element, and I just find it so easy breezy comfortable to wear because it just doesn't pull anywhere. Like, you wear a tank top under it, and it's just open and breezy and comfy, and I like it. So I wanted to try it in a knitted piece. So we'll have to see. And I think that would work well for shows too, because you have to move around a lot and stuff like that. So, whatever. And then I made it a long tunic length because I know I'd be wearing it with leggings. And I did the back hem just a little bit lower than the front hem. So I did leave this stitch marker in. I will show you. That is where I was the last time I showed it to you. And so everything below that stitch marker is all that I had to put into it. And then I just had to block it and press it, which I did my usual way. I laid down some towels. I got my spray that has some soak mixed in. I gave it a really good spray. I pressed down, I sprayed extra along the areas that I wanted to press down, like the neckline and the hem and everything like that. And then I kind of straightened it out with my fingers, got everything into place. I put another absorbent cloth, like a ShamWow, on top, and then I just loaded things on top, like books and laptops and whatever I could find in the room that it was in, to kind of hold that down and press it. So that's what I did. This is what I have left from the last ball, and this is the yarn that you can see. I really enjoyed working with this yarn, and I love the colors that it offers. It's really nice heather. There's a lot of heather colorways, and it's got a little bit of a halo. I will have to see how it washes to know that if it's something I want to seek out in the future for future garments, because even though I don't wear my garments, I'm still going to make them, but that's another whole thing. But yeah, I could see wanting to work with this yarn again. It's not too thick, it's not too thin, it's just a really nice weight. It's a DK weight yarn. But yeah, I really enjoyed working with it, and I enjoyed how the finished garment turned out and looks. I did not keep track of how many balls I used for it, so what I had to do was just weigh the sweater and see if what the total weight of the sweater was kind of made sense with what I had, and it kind of did, because it was like 420 something grams, and when I weighed this one little ball, it was like 20 something grams that was left. These are 50-gram balls, so I was like, okay, that kind of makes sense with everything. So it looks like I used about 8.5 balls to finish this garment. Is there anything else? I used 4mm needles. It's typical DK weight yarn needles, and yeah, I'm happy with how it turned out. We'll just have to see the fate of it and if it works its way into my general wardrobe. So that is that. And then the next thing I am going to show you is something that I wasn't sure if I was going to finish, but I did. And I finished my cowl, my wool cot cowl. So as I mentioned before, this works towards my bingo card square of use 2 PDF patterns that I had in my library that I've had for years. I had gone through it one day and just tried to see if I had any patterns in there that I still wanted to knit, and the wool cot was one of them. I did want to change the pattern slightly so that it would be almost like a double knit design, and I did do that. Now, I am happy enough with the finished product, but I do wish, there was no way I was going to be able to know, but I do wish it was slightly different. And I will explain that in a moment. So this is the cable design, which I think is really pretty. And then I did it so that I used a contrast color and did a turn, and so that there's like a double knit inside. So the beige on the outside is the Knit Picks twill worsted. And I really liked working with this. Like if I was placing a Knit Picks order and there was a project that I needed kind of like a solid color worsted weight yarn for, I would consider ordering this again. It was really nice to work on. I did hold it double, so it's a little bulkier than it would be on its own, but I was pleased with that. I think I initially purchased it to make a neutral baby sweater, because this is like, cream is not usually a color that I would seek out, but it worked well in this project. And then, so yeah, I designed it so that after I finished the cable part, I did a purl row so that that would be my turning row, and then I knit in stocking net for the same length, I guess, as the cable part. And then somewhere, I'm not sure, yeah, I think you can kind of see it right here, looks like where I grafted the tube together so that there would be kind of a lining, a knit lining. And for this speckled yarn, I used this yarn that was in my stash. What's kind of funny about this, I do remember following this dyer. She wouldn't have been on Instagram at that point, but maybe on Ravelry I followed her. And in real life, she was a forensic, like she was in the field of forensics. So that's why she called her company CS Dye. And then all her tags are like little toe tags. So it actually says, when this was created, 2015. I've had this yarn since 2015. I don't think this dyer dyes anymore. But this yarn has stuck around in my multiple kind of, yarn destashes, because I just thought the colors were so pretty. And I still do. And I thought it would be a nice kind of pop against, the cream. So sometimes you wear the cream, and then, sometimes you can wear, the bright colors. And so, yeah, the idea that I had did work out. Like, I think it did work out. I've got my solid speckle, and then I've got my cream. The only thing that I wish was different was that I wish it wasn't so wide. So I wish, like, it had been maybe 2 repeats less. But I don't think I would have been able to figure that out, because I cast on the amount of stitches that the pattern said, because I hadn't done this pattern before, so, you want to follow it exactly. And then once all the stitches are bunched on your kind of circular needles, it's really hard to see when you're done and you cast off what that's going to expand to. Now, it is completely wearable. It's not so wide that it's obnoxious. Let me see. I did take some pictures of me wearing it, but I'll try it on. Just give me a second. So here it is with the cable part on the outside, and you can see there is like a bit of extra width there. Like, it wouldn't have to be quite as wide as it is, but it's not obnoxiously wide. Like, I can easily wear this under a coat, and it is a good height. Like, I wanted it to kind of cover my neck and kind of come up a little bit, not like right up to my nose or anything, but I did want it to come up and at least cover my neck. And then let me switch it around so you can see the other version. And here it is as the speckle. So again, you can see that like there's extra fabric. It's not like it just sits nice and close to my neck. But I mean, I could wear it open like this if it's not quite as hot or quite as cold a day if I wanted, or I can kind of tuck it under my coat like this. So it might end up being that the aspect of it that I'm not 100% happy with might end up being very practical in how it's used. So yeah, we'll just have to see. The weather is still pretty cool here. We had that 1 week. We had this like 1 week heat wave where we had summer-like temperatures, which was really bizarre. It was so nice to get out to the parks and stuff, but that week after that was done, the temperatures like plummeted back down. We've had a really rainy week this week, so I don't know if it's cold enough where if I was going out, I'd be wearing like a full-on cowl. But it's also I don't think it's gonna get that cold now. Like, we're in May, so like the temperature's only gonna start evening out and getting warmer. So I have a feeling that this is going to end up going into the, the winter bins, and I'll be able to use it. But first thing in the fall, when that air starts getting nippy, I'll be able to pull this out, and then we'll see how practical it is. But I do kind of like how it's got the two element. And I can even flare it out, but like that. I don't know. We'll have fun. I'll have fun playing with it, and we'll see. I might end up really enjoying how this turned out. So this is, I think, the last project that you had seen me start that I have worked on. Everything else going forward now is stuff that you haven't seen, and that is new. So, oh wait, I have that kind of transition piece. Okay, let me get this off and get that set up, and we'll talk about that before I get into my new stuff. Okay, here we go. I did take a few days this past month, or just past couple of weeks, whatever, to catch up on my mitered square blanket, because I had been finishing so many socks that I had so many little minis put aside. I didn't want to leave it too long to where it would be overwhelming to catch up on it. So I was like, okay, let's just take a couple of days and get the extras that I have put into my mitered square blanket. So if you are new to this project, I started this, I could probably look for the little tag and see. I think it was 2017 that I started. I have a feeling that's when it was. I could look if I wanted to, because I have all these little tags. Of course, I can't find one right now, can I? Can I find a tag right now? Okay, I found one. So basically, I think I started this in 2017, and every year I've been putting in work on it, using the leftovers from different fingering weight projects that I complete over the year. And at the end of every year, I border that section off with black yarn, and I create a little tag to go on it. So you can see this one says 2020. So if I wanted to take a moment, I really could look at all my tags and find the earliest one, or it's the middle panel that has the earliest tag. I'm not going to do that, but I'm pretty sure it's 2017. So I've been working on this for many, many, many years. And the goal is that this is going to be a project that Avery Tim takes with her when she, moves out of the house. Maybe not, permanently, but like even if she goes to college, university, whatever, like when she does something where she's kind of starting on her journey outside of the home, that this is something that she can take with her, and just, remember all the things that, all the projects that she saw Mommy working on. There's lots of things in here that I made for her, and a lot of them I can remember. So if she wanted to sit down, I could tell her what everything was. But I had not, at this point of the year, put in the yarns from this year's projects. And I wanted to do that before the pile got too big and it got too overwhelming and it was going to take too long. So I decided that, I should just sit and get that done. So for my mitered square blanket, I know this pattern, this kind of concept was really popular a couple of years ago, and everybody was making one. I don't know if there's still people making these, but I'm still working on mine. And I use 54 stitches as my kind of square count. So you work with, you have a marker that where you do your decreases down the middle. And so I have 27 stitches on each side of my marker. So I started the row. This is my, fresh new row that I'm going to be working on for this year's panel. This was the yarn from my brother Owen's socks, the Turtle Pearl yarn socks. And then I've got this one, which was finishing Dennis's socks. And then after we have the two yarns that I used to finish the microstripe socks that had been like a long, 2-3 year whip that was sitting around. So I finished those. That's these two yarns here. And then this is the yarn, some of the leftover yarn from Rebecca's rainbow microstripe socks. And then because I used this kind of cobalt yarn in both her socks and my mom's socks, I put that in the middle. So that's that one. And then this was all that was left of that speckled yarn from my mom's socks. This is all that was left after I ripped back and redid everything. I just had this tiny little ball left. And so I used everything I could and then finished the rest with the cobalt. And that completed a row. You can see that I have now ended on this section here. This shows you the black border that I do, but I can now move up to the next row for any new fingering projects that I decide to work on. So before we get into the new cast-ons, I have one project that is finished that was not planned, that I just kind of created on a whim, that I can show you before that. And it's another stuffy. So Kira has really gotten into, it must be the last couple of weeks or so, the Minions movies. We have number 1, number 2, number 3, and then we also have the Minions movie. We don't have the first one, The Rise of Gru. I haven't even seen that one. Have you guys seen that one? Is it worth getting? I think Avery saw it in the theater, but I'm not sure. We don't have that one, and I don't know if there's any other ones. But she really just enjoys whenever it's like kind of just a chill time and she wants to watch a movie. I'm like, okay, what do you want to watch? She's always like Minions, Minions, Minions. And her favorite is number 3. And if you're not familiar with that, I think that one's my favorite too. It's got the villain from the 80s, so there's lots of 80s themes in it. And it's just a good story. I really like it. And she calls it Bubblegum Gru. So like if I say, oh, which movie do you want to watch? She's like, Minions with Bubblegum Gru. Because the opening scene, he's floating through the air with hanging from the, if you've seen it, you know, the bubblegum. So she's really been enjoying these movies. And of course, when your kid really enjoys something, you're like, oh, you know, I was like, you know, do we have any little minion toys that she can, you know, play with or you know, hold or cuddle with when she's watching these movies? And of course we really didn't. And so then, you know, you start going online. It's like, oh, are there any Minion toys out there? And then, you know, as usual, I'm shocked by the prices of things, because when did stuffed toys get so expensive? Anyway, so I had it in my head. I was like, okay, you know what? I could probably make a Minion. When she goes in bed, like whatever day I was thinking about this, I was like, once I put her down for bed, I'm going to go downstairs and have a look through my fleece stash. There was one year where I was just all into making things with fleece, and I just bought all the colors of fleece. And I was like, I'm going to go look in my fleece stash, and if I have the colors to make a Minion, we're going to try and figure this out. So I did. I went downstairs, I looked, I found the blue, I found the yellow, I found the white, I found the black. I didn't have a silver for the goggles, so I just had to improvise with that. But I found all the colors, so I was like, okay, you know what, let's see if we can get this done. And I looked up a picture of a Minion online, and if you remember when I made the Simon's cat that I did for Christmas, he was done in kind of like just a flat outline kind of design, so I didn't have to do any special toy making construction. And so I thought, I can do that with a Minion. I mean, Minions are just a pretty basic shape. We'll just do a flat shaped Minion. And that evening, I cut out the pieces, and I think I sew the whole thing in one night? I might have. And then the next morning, it was ready to go. And so I did. Now, he's not completely, you know, accurate, but it's Minion enough. And I made this little guy. So as you can see, it's just like the flat shape. I think I cut out 2 of the body shapes, and then I attached all these little accent pieces. I just sewed it right directly on there before sewing the 2 pieces together. So all of this stuff was sewn on the one piece first, and then I put the right sides together and sewed all the body and put the little arms in and put the little legs in. He's got little feet and stuff like that. And then for the eyeballs and the mouth, I just used the black fabric paint that I have. So he's pretty big and squishy, but yeah, she just enjoys sitting on the couch and he's very pillowy, and holding him and just cuddling with her Minion as she watches her Minion movies. So that was not a planned project, but it's just something fun that I want to do. And I have to say, I just love fleece. It's so easy to sew with, and it doesn't fray, so like you don't have to worry about edges and all that kind of stuff. And my fleece stash is getting a little bit low, and I'm almost debating, I'm like, do I need to, like, you know, go to Fabricland and check out their fleece and like just re-up on some basic colors? I don't know. I might just wait and see if I actually need it at some point. But yeah, I've really enjoyed all that. Past Erin, who stocked up on all those fleece colors for who knows what reason, has come in really handy for present Erin wanting to make all the toys for her kiddo. So that is that, and now we're getting into the new projects that I have cast on. So in my goals, I had said that if I finished Rebecca's socks and if I finished my mom's socks, I would most likely cast on 2 new pairs of socks, and that is what I did. So the 2 remaining, I think I only have the 2 left on my bingo card, is to make a pair of socks for my brother Ian and to make a pair of socks for my brother Evan. So those are the ones that I knew were going to be coming up next. And I was actually able to visit with them a little bit Easter weekend. We went to my mom's and they were all there, and so I was kind of able to ask them, like, hey, I'm going to be making you socks again this year. Do you have any color requests, or do you care? Should I just pick something that I have? Because as I've mentioned, my unofficial goal this year is to work from stash. I'm not really buying any yarn. And if I absolutely needed to, like, I would, but I kind of want to see if I can get through the whole year not buying any yarn, and I'm pretty sure I can. So they gave me some ideas. My brother Ian was just like, oh, anything kind of darker. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. I can work with that. And then my brother Evan was like, oh, maybe something red. And I was like, that could be interesting, because red yarn is not something that I would normally buy. Now, if I was buying yarn, there is, if you remember, I made, last year I made him the pair of yarn from Knit Picks, the Knit Pick Static. And I really liked working with it, and they came out with new colors, and I'm very tempted by them. And they have a color in their new line that is kind of red based. And I'm like, oh, if I was, you know, buying yarn and was placing a Knit Picks order, I would very much consider picking up that red one. But I might wait till the end of the year. He can get that pair next year. So I went through my stash and I looked for something that would work. And let's start with Ian's socks. So I knew I wanted to make at least one of the pairs microstripe socks, because that's what I'm doing. And so I kind of had to work with, like, okay, what solid yellow colors yarns do I have, and what other yarns do those solid colors go with? As I mentioned, I don't have a lot of solid colored yarns to work with, but I did find this in my stash. So this is actually not it's not a yarn that was like this from a dyer. I'm pretty sure I received this yarn originally in a like a mystery box or a themed box. I was really into mystery boxes a number of years ago, and I think this was one that came in there. I hear a little muffin, and she's coming, and she's going to see that I'm doing something. Hello. Hi. What's up? What's mommy doing? Yeah, I'm holding yarn. Are you watching a show?
I want to sit on your lap.
And you want to sit on my lap? Well, that's not going to work very well for what I'm doing, honey. You want to say hello to the camera?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Hello.
Hello. What are you doing today? Were you getting into trouble earlier? No, you weren't. You weren't in Avery's room? Were you in Avery's room? Yeah. Yeah, were you touching her things? Yeah. Now what are you doing? You making faces? Yeah. Okay. What are you going to do now? What are you going to do? Can mommy finish doing her show?
No.
No, I didn't think so. I think we might have reached the point where we are going to be taking a little break. Are you hungry? Should we make some lunch? Okay. Okay. I'm going to go make her some lunch, and maybe that will keep her occupied for another little bit, because, yeah, really I only have a couple of projects left to talk about, so we'll have to see how that goes. So we'll say, see you later. Bye. We'll see you soon.
Bye. I'm Kira, and I'm Faitha. And this is my face. It's cool. Bye, my dear. Okay. I'm Mommy. I'm gonna love yarn. So I just got this.
Okay, so hopefully she'll be occupied for just a little bit longer. I just have a few more things to get through. So I think I was talking about Ian's socks and how I found this yarn in my stash to use. It wasn't originally dyed like this. So I received this in a mystery box, and I believe it was like a bright yellow and a bright green variegated. And it was just something that I knew I probably wasn't going to use in our project, and so I just over dyed it with a green, and you can kind of still see the brighter colors I think was where the yellow was, or maybe that kind of brownish color is where the yellow was. But yeah, it ended up being this kind of really nice tonal, more forest green than that bright yellow and like lime green. So I knew I had this, and so I looked through my stash to see if there was something that would kind of go with this. And what I ended up finding was this skein here. And this is from Plucky Knitter, and I don't think I ever purchased from Plucky Knitter, so I'm pretty sure I would have received this in some kind of swap. But I thought the colors, and just in case this, I think Plucky Knitter still dyes, right? I'm so out of the loop with things, especially when I'm like just focused on working from stash this year. I'm not looking at what people are knitting with. I'm not looking at what dyers are. I'm not following anybody. You'll have to let me know, how important is it to you to know exactly what yarns and exactly what colors people are using, or do you just kind of use them, like the project itself, as inspiration? Because I know for myself, when I'm watching a knitting podcast, I'm looking at what they're making and how they're doing it, and then kind of like if there's something that I find, sometimes I'm just interested, I'm just nosy, I just like seeing what people are doing. But if they're working on something that I'm like, ooh, I'd really like to do that too, I'm not so much interested in exactly what they're using. I just will take that idea and then kind of use what I have to make that happen. So I don't know, let me know how important it is for you guys to know exact yarns, exact colors and all that, because sometimes I don't even have the labels anymore. And sometimes my yarns are so old that they're not even, still available. But anyway, this is a Plucky Knitter yarn. I'm pretty sure I got this in a swap. The color is tartan if you're interested. But I thought these colors would work well together. Now, originally I was like, okay, do I want to do microstripe socks with this? But I think I was going to fall into the same kind of problem that I had with my mom's socks, where this was going to be too speckly for the colors to really be showcased. So what I ended up doing was just a contrast cuff and then a plain stockinette sock. So this is what I have of Ian's first sock. So you can see I used the solid there. You can really kind of see the variegated colors there that kind of show up nicely in the daylight there. But this is how the skein of the Plucky Knitter is working out. Now up here I was like, ooh, I really like how this is speckling. And then I noticed down here that it started fading out. And I think that can happen a lot with speckled yarns because the way they're dyed, depending on how the dye falls and the concentrations, you can get one part of the skein that is much different than the other part. I know with my dyeing, like I do primarily speckled yarns, I really make an effort to hand manipulate the yarn in the pan so that when I speckle things, it's hitting all the different areas of the yarn and not just like the one layer or another layer. But yeah, you can kind of see with this one that things are spreading out down here, but I think that's fine. I don't mind how it's looking. We'll have to see how the second sock looks, if it's going to be vastly different. But so far I am okay with this, and I like how that kind of foresty green is complementing the rest of the colors in the yarn. And I think for my brother's request for kind of something a little bit darker, these fit the bill. So I have just finished the foot of the sock, and I'm about to attach. I'm going to use this contrast to put on the toe. So for my brother's socks, they are my standard, like I use the 72 stitches, and then everything else is the same. And then for them I do 75 rows, so you can see with all my little stitch markers here, I've just finished the 75 rows and I'm waiting to attach that contrast yarn to do the toe. So this is almost done. I could finish this first sock probably in maybe not a full evening, maybe an evening depending. The one nice thing I will add about Kira not having naps anymore is that she goes to bed so much earlier, and I get more time in the evening to myself, which is absolutely lovely. So I could actually potentially finish the toe in one evening now, whereas before I would only have like an hour in the evenings to myself. Now I have like 2.5 hours to myself. So I could finish the toe, but if not, 2 evenings, or maybe an evening and an afternoon. We'll see, but 2 days. I could finish that toe and then get to the second sock started. So the next thing I cast on, because once I finished my mom's socks, so I'm pretty sure I cast those on shortly after I finished Rebecca's socks. And then once I finished my mom's socks, I knew I wanted to cast on another pair and get Evan's socks out of the way. And like I said, when I asked him what he might like for a pair, he mentioned something red, and I really wasn't sure what I would have in my stash that had red. But I did end up finding this skate here that has some red in it. I'm pretty sure that I got this as part of one of my advent swaps with my friends. And yeah, I thought, you know what, these colors, it's got red in it, and like the other kind of, this kind of caramel color is very much in my brother's wheelhouse, so I was like, well, he might like that. I kind of like the contrast of that kind of teal with the red. That's one of my favorite combinations, is red and teal. So I was like, this could be fun to work with. And I was like, okay, if I want to do micro stripes with this, because I knew I wanted to do one of these pairs of micro stripe. I'm like, what am I going to pair with this? I did find something that was kind of like this caramel color, but I really, I find that micro stripes work the best when you have a contrast color that is completely different than any other color that's in the yarn, so that those little rows really stand out. So I looked through everything I had, and I really couldn't find something that I thought would go well. In my mind, what I thought would look really nice with this was like a deep chocolate brown. So then what I decided to do was to look through the yarns that I had put aside that I was kind of like destashing and I knew that I wasn't really interested in, to see if there was anything in there that would over dye well to be a chocolate brown. And I did. I found something. I found, again, I believe this was from a mystery box. It was basically a primary red, primary yellow, and primary blue, all in a variegated skein. Just not in my, what I would want to make a project with. And I was like, oh, you know what? I bet you this would over dye well, because all of those colors, you mix them together, you basically get brown. So if I over dye brown on top of those colors, I'm going to get a nice kind of brown variegated. And so that's what I did. So this is the yarn here that I ended up with, and you can kind of even see where those primary colors are peeking through. You can kind of see here, that's where the blue's peeking through, the yellow's peeking through there, the red's peeking through there. But all in all, it's kind of like this nice, variegated brown. It's just not a boring flat brown. I think it will work quite well. Or I thought it would work quite well, because obviously I've already started it. I know what it looks like. And that's what I did. So I put those two together, and this is how it's looking. Now this yarn here, I do have the label for that. So it's this here. I don't even know what this, I've never heard. easyknits.co.uk, Easy Knits. I'm not familiar with that yarn company, but that's why I'm pretty sure I got it in one of my swaps. And this is called Winter Dawn. It did come with a little mini for toes and heels and stuff like that. But it didn't say anything on the label whether it was a striping yarn or not. When I looked at this yarn in the skein, I suspected it might be a striping. But unless a yarn company says this is a striping yarn, if you don't know that, sometimes it can be hard depending on how it's wound. Is it going to be variegated or is it going to be striping? But once I cast on and got going, I found out very quickly that it is in fact a striping yarn. So here is what that over-dyed yarn looks like knit up, and I think the colors that kind of are peeking through from the original are playing very nicely as a complement with the colors in the other yarn. So I did my cuff, and then yeah, I just started doing my micro stripes, and you can see that yeah, it's a striping yarn. And I actually think it would have looked really nice on its own as just a striping yarn. I think my brother would have really liked these colors as a striping, just plain striping yarn as well. But I do like how it's working up in the micro stripes. Micro stripes, the thing I love about micro stripe socks is there's a little bit of magic involved, because they just seem to go so fast. I cast on Ian socks, and I was a good way through the leg. I think I had started the heel increases when I cast on these socks. And quickly after I cast on these socks, I just zoomed past the progress that I had on Ian socks, and I finished the leg, I got the heel done, I was doing the turning of the heel, and I was like, okay, whoa, we need to go back to Ian socks and put a little time into those too. And so I did that, and I got through the heel and the foot through Ian socks, but then I've come back to these, and they're just so much fun. I don't know what it is about it, because the actual knitting it's still just a plain stockinette sock, and you're actually have extra it's almost like there's extra work because you're alternating the two skeins, but then even with that, there's something very enjoyable about that. And just see, I don't know what the magic is, but I just find this technique to be super fast, super engaging. It's really fun to work on, so the socks just go by really quickly. So yeah, I got the heel put in, and I am on the foot now. And I'm probably about maybe 10-15 rows into the foot. I'll have to start, I do have my first marker in there, so I'm at least 10 and a bit. So yeah, probably about 15 rows into the foot, and I'm just going to keep plugging away on those, and I'll probably, I will probably get that pair done before it ends, but I'm going to try and balance it out between the two. So yeah, my priority is to get that toe done on Ian's sock and get the second sock started before I finish Evan's first sock. So those are two projects that I think I envisioned having started for this episode. But then I have one more project for you that was not, I didn't think I was going to start. I knew I was going to cast it on at some point because it is something that I have in mind for one of my bingo squares. But I didn't think I was going to start it for like this episode. But I don't know. One night I just felt like doing it. I think I had finished a whole bunch of other stuff, and I kind of had some time to, fit that in, because otherwise, once I finished the trestle tee, once I finished the cowl, once I finished everything, all I had was the 2 pairs of socks now that I was working on, and I wanted something else a little bit different too. So I decided to cast on one of the patterns that I had picked out to complete my use 2 PDF patterns from my library square. The first one was Wolcott, and then that time where I was going through all my PDFs to try and see if I even had 2 patterns that kind of interested me. The other one that I found was this chameleon by, I'll put the picture up here. Was it Hansi Singh, I think? Hansi Singh? I think that was the designer. But yeah, the information is there. So I bought this back in probably between 2015 and 2017 because that was like my peak pattern buying years. And it was just one of the things I thought, I was like, a knitted chameleon, that's so interesting, right? Oh, this pattern looks so interesting. I think I'm just going to buy this pattern. I'll make it eventually. And then years and years and years and years and years go by, and I still haven't made it. So I decided that this was one that I was interested in. Now, before deciding that I was going to actually make it, I looked through all the pattern photos, because there are actually quite a lot of projects of this pattern. And I wanted to look through all the projects, and I wanted to see what different yarns people use to make this, and see if there was a type of yarn, because I knew the shaping of it was going to be very intricate and very interesting to do, but I knew also that the type of yarn that you would use with a pattern like this would greatly affect how the finished project would turn out. So I wanted to look at everybody's projects. I wanted to see what type of yarn people were using, and if there was a project that really stood out to me, like how I liked how it looked, and then what type of yarn did they use? Did they use a variegated yarn? Was it a solid yarn? Was it a tonal yarn? Was it a speckled yarn? Was it a striping yarn? Like, what did they use that made this construction like appealing? So I was scrolling through the projects and I came across one that I was like, ooh, that looks really cool. I like that chameleon. And I clicked on it and I looked at the yarn they used, and don't I have the exact yarn that they used in my stash? Like, how is this like working out, right? So they had the yarn. I looked at the yarn, I'm like, I have that yarn, and I have tried to make other projects with it, and they've just never turned out, or I've ripped it back like twice and put it back in my stash. I was like, okay, how much yarn did they use? Do I have enough? Because I think I only have 2 balls of this yarn. And so I looked at how much yarn they used to finish it, and it was like a ball and, a third or something. I was like, perfect. That's what I have, 2 balls. So I knew that's what I was going to make. That's what I was going to use to make this pattern, and I knew this was going to be the other pattern that I was going to use to complete that square. So the other night I decided to cast it on, and I wasn't sure how it was going to go, because I did read in everybody's notes, they're like, whoa, this construction is like kind of mind-blowing, and like how does this designer even figure this out? And I was like, okay, is this going to be more mentally involved than I am like really interested in doing right now? Like, simple projects are more my thing right now. But I was like, we're going to try it. I know I've made complicated patterns in the past. I know I can do it, so let's just give it a go. So I did. I cast on, and the first part of the pattern was super easy. I was able to finish it in basically an evening, and I think this is the first part. So basically you cast it on, and then there was all these kind of increases. You can kind of see these increases that all lined up to make this nice little kind of dome shape. And so this is the chameleon's back, okay? And I don't think I even mentioned the yarn. So this is the yarn here. It is a Sirdar, a James C. Brett yarn, not Sirdar, sorry, James C. Brett yarn. The Party Time Chunky. I had bought this probably to make something for Avery, either accessories or something, because she was just all about the rainbows and the bright colors, and I just never did. So like I said, this was the first part, and you can kind of see the chameleon's body taking shape. I finished that in an evening. So I think 2 evenings later, I decided to tackle the next part. And basically you're doing the exact same. You were following the same instructions for the first part, but then towards the end, here comes Muffin again. Okay, so I think we were talking about the second half. Kira walked in, and then my camera shut down because things were full and I had to like delete some stuff. So the second half of the chameleon was made pretty much just like the first half, and you ended up with this kind of another dome little shape for the chameleon's back. But this time, after you finished the wrap and turn section to create the tail, you grafted the two parts together. So both the front and the back were done on separate needles, you can kind of see there. And then after you finished the second part of the body, you grafted the tails together. So right now I have this section here that connects the two halves, and then it splits here. And I'm trying to remember what I have to do. No, was it a grafting, or was it 3? Okay, I think this was grafting, and then I'm going to be doing, I don't remember. Anyway, I think the next thing I'm going to be doing is somehow connecting this back part, and then we're going to be making limbs and working from here, and then somehow picking up and making a head. I did kind of read through the pattern a little bit just so that I kind of got a grasp, but at this moment I forget what the next step was. After I grafted the tail together, yeah, it was grafting. The tail was grafting. So maybe this is knitting together. I don't know. You know what? I will be able to update you on that in the next episode once I wrap my head around what the next step will be. But this is what I am working on for the second make a pattern from my PDF library. I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be really fun to have a stuffed chameleon, very random. I'm not even really making it for the girls. Like, I fully plan on finding a little place back there on my shelf for this super bright, fun little creature. So that is the other new project that I had to share with you. Now I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a little clip where we go over to my bingo card and we see what squares I can fill in, what I'm working on. Do we have any rows complete? Do we have any bingos yet? I suspect that we might. And then after we do that, we'll come back and I'm going to talk about my goals for the next episode. So let's go do that. Okay, so here is my bingo card as it currently is, and again, I'm just holding the camera, so if it's a little shaky, I apologize, but this shouldn't take too long. So, okay, so let's think about what I finished this round and what I can mark off. So let's see, I know I finished some socks. Where's Rebecca's socks? All right, there we go. So let's move this little work in progress guy over here. And we are going to mark this complete. There we go, so that one's done. And then we also finished my mom's sock, so let's move that over there. So those are two projects that I finished. Another one was my high trestle tee, and I think I had that started over here as one of my old whips. So we are going to fill that square in, Put our little check mark there. What else? Oh, look, we got a bingo. We have a diagonal row, so that's exciting. What is something else I finished? Oh, the cowl. So that counts for use 2 patterns from my PDF library. So I can't mark that square off, but I can give one of these little PDF images here a little check mark. So we are on our way for finishing that one. So what else do we have? We have socks for Evan are in progress. Socks for Ian are in progress. Oh, I finished that minion, and I think I'm going to use that on a random project square. So let's see. I think the best one would be to place it right here, because then we can get another bingo. So let's do that. We'll fill that in. Do our little check mark, and we've got 2 bingos. So yay, we've got 2 bingos already. And then what else did I start? Did I start anything else that I can mark down? I started my socks for Evan, and I started the chameleon. So we can put a little work in progress on the second part of that square. I don't think I have anything else that I can do. No dishcloths, I haven't started that. No more whips. My random project, maybe next time. The yarn, no. Okay, so I think that's everything that we can mark off, but we were able to fill in a few more squares, and we were able to get 2 bingos, so that is very exciting. I'm really enjoying seeing this card fill up. Yeah, I have a feeling this is going to be a good year. So back to the episode, and hopefully we can make some more progress next time. Okay, we're back. So that was fun. I think, yeah, we got a couple of bingos there, and I feel like I'm actually getting quite a bit of progress earlier on in the year on my bingo card, like more so than in past years. Like at this point, I don't feel like I would have as much progress as I've made this year. This year is turning out to be a really good, productive year. I think it's a combination of setting my goals lower because of the past couple of years and just having not as much productivity, but then matching that with the fact that this year is actually turning out to be much more productive. So more productivity with lower goals is working out to be like I'm actually making progress on my card. Do you think I'm going to finish my card this year? I still look at the goals that I have left, and there's none that I'm like, oh, there's no way I'm going to finish that. So we'll have to see. I have a good feeling about this year. So that was my bingo card. Now we're going to talk about goals. So next episode, what do I think I might finish? I'm pretty sure that I'm going to finish one of, if not both, of my brother's socks. I have I've been moseying along on those pretty well. I think in 3 weeks I can easily finish the second socks for both of them. I'm going to put it out there. I'm going to have both of those socks finished. The chameleon, I think I might have, I don't think I'm going to have the chameleon finished, but I think I might have the body finished, and then, because the limbs, you have to make each of the limbs separately, and the limbs, because of, the little chameleon toes, I have a feeling that the chameleon, each of the chameleon legs are going to be quite intricate and quite involved. So, I don't think, okay, am I going to have maybe the body done, maybe the legs done, maybe half the body, let's say 2 legs. I'm going to have 2 legs done, at least 2 legs done, maybe more, but I will still be working on the chameleon. What else? I don't think I'm going to have enough yarn left to put in some more squares in my mitered squares thing, so I don't think we're going to touch that. I could see casting on another pair of socks. At this point, I was looking at my card, and like after I finished my brother's socks, that's all the socks that I put on my card. Like, I honestly, I think because last year I really didn't make very many socks, and so I didn't want to, predict that I was going to make so many this year and not make them. But I have no more socks on my card, so I can pretty much do whatever I want. And what I was thinking of is there's a pair that I want to make for myself. I have a yarn in my stash that I've had my eye on for years that I want to make for myself. I think I'm going to save that for July. So until July, I can basically make whatever socks I want. And I think I'm going to try this year, for the first time in years, making my brothers a second pair of Christmas socks. Years and years and years ago, they pretty much always got 2 to 3 pairs of socks every Christmas. And then, once Kira arrived, it got quite cut back because I just wasn't able to make that many pairs in a year. And I think I might be able to do it. So I might just start back at the beginning with Owen, and I might have another pair of socks for Owen cast on by the next episode. Is there anything else? Oh, there is one other thing that I have a feeling that I'm going to have at least started, if not completed, because it's a very quick project. I'm going to do another sewing project I have my eye on, making Kira another toy. She just really loves her toys. I remember making all these toys for Avery, and she just never played. She likes collecting stuffies and having them and looking at them, but she doesn't really play with stuffies, whereas Kira plays with her stuffies. And so, if you remember, for her birthday, we got her the T-Rex stuffy and the Stegosaurus stuffy. And the T-Rex stuffy has proven to be, her little buddy. She brings him everywhere. She brings him grocery shopping. She brings him to the park. She brings him whatever. She sleeps with him, whatever. But her favorite dinosaur is actually the Pachycephalosaurus. And it is a very hard dinosaur to find toys of. Like, you can find figurines, but there's no stuffed Pachycephalosauruses out there. And so I thought, of course, we're going back to the whole thing with the minion. It's like, can I make one? Can I make a Pachycephalosaurus? And I did end up going on Etsy and looking for patterns, and I found one that was kind of generic enough, like it's just a generic looking dinosaur, that I think I can add the details to it to make it look like a Pachycephalosaurus. So I actually, I bought the pattern. I emailed it to Dennis, because now that he's going in once a week, we have access to a printer that works. And I emailed it to him earlier this week, and I said, hey, when you go into work, can you print off the pattern pages? So if he does that, if he comes home today and he has printed out those pages and I have the template that I need, I've already picked out the fabric, I might have started or completed another stuffed toy. And I think we're going to leave it at that. Those are the things that I'm pretty sure that I will either finish or start tackling. And anything else that I do will just end up being a bonus. So that is it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're having a lovely day or weekend or evening or whatever you're doing. I hope you're working on all the things that bring you joy. And I will talk to you soon.